about, somebody asked Dak Prescott about his legacy. And, there's certain quarterbacks where you say their name, Brady, GOAT, Lamar Jackson, electric, Josh Allen, powerful, Drew Brees, accuracy, John Elway, legendary, Mahomes, gifted. And Dak doesn't really have a trait that's memorable or wow. I think he's a great leader. I think of him more as the Walter Payton Trophy than a Lombardi Trophy. And that's fine. I mean, he's 2-5 all time in the playoffs. Hasn't been very good. 0-3 in the divisional round. Kind of limited. But I was thinking about this as he was talking about his legacy. And let's play the bite of Dak talking about what will his legacy be?
I want to win a championship. The legacy, the things, whatever comes after I finish playing will take care of itself. I want to win a championship. Be damned if it's just for my legacy or it's for this team, for my personal being, for my sanity. Yeah, the legacy will take care of itself. I have to stay where my feet are.
Now, I do think when Dak entered the league, Dallas was a great place for a quarterback to land. They had the dominating number one O-line and the best running back. They drafted him. And Jason Garrett was a mature, consistent coach. And the division was kind of a mess. Philadelphia wasn't this good. The Giants weren't great. And Washington was still owned by Dan Snyder. So the division. And I thought Dak benefited greatly. We wouldn't have been talking about Dak, a fourth-round quarterback out of Mississippi State, had he gone to Houston or Jacksonville or, other organizations. We just wouldn't have. He has benefited greatly early in his career. But I think now he's actually the only thing holding Dallas together. I think the coaching staff's arguably going to be the worst in the league. They've gotten increasingly weird and poor at drafting. You cross your fingers on Javonte Williams, a number 2 running back, being the bell cow because they have a bad running back room. The offensive line is in rebuild and feels kind of makeshift. And again, they don't have any money in free agency. They're top heavy, and they're not drafting particularly well. I'm trying to think of a quarterback that entered, because we know where you land matters. I'm trying to think of a quarterback who entered the league, and it felt like a pretty darn shrewd, well-run organization. They hadn't won Super Bowls. They crushed drafting offensive line. Zeke was a gamble, but a huge hit. Their coaching was not considered elite or awful. And now look at them. I mean, what are they great at? Nothing. Draft and development, free agency. Dak is holding it together. And I think a lot of that is, now, do I think he has benefited? Yeah, if you want to play blind resume on Dak, I mean, just to show you how often we have talked about Dak, he has made tens of millions of dollars in advertising that he would not have made at other places. But if you do blind resume on Dak Prescott, I could put up quarterbacks who have had significantly more fruitful careers, but we never talk about him. But right now, Dak went from benefiting greatly from the Cowboys to holding a mess of a franchise together. And he deserves credit for that. And they've been talking about, like, a prime example of where the Cowboys are at is they had to go make a move for George Pickens because they didn't have a second skill player that they could trust after CeeDee Lamb. And Pickens is great, but he comes with all sorts of baggage. I mean, Mike Tomlin's one of the more patient coaches in the NFL. He moved off George Pickens. He was the one that initiated the trade, Mike Tomlin, according to reports. We can't have him. So that's where we are.
Okay. It's an interesting take. And I think there's some truth to it, but I don't think it's all the truth. I mean, saying Dak is the only thing that's holding this team together. I mean, look what Cooper Rush did. 1,844 yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and a QBR of 41, which I don't care about QBR. And Dak did 1,978, 11 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and a 45.3 QBR. So, I mean, they pretty much were the same team. with Cooper Rush. And so if Dak's not elevating this team, then you're like, well, then what is he doing? And you can say, oh, but the weapons and the O-line and this and that. And it's like, that could all be true, but like, I'm still expecting a starting quarterback, the quarterback who's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, highest paid quarterback in NFL history, to elevate a team more so than a Cooper Rush. I know that's crazy of me to think that. But I do understand, though, what Colin's saying, though, whereas, you know, because of how this team is run, because of the mess, the culture, etc., that it's no longer this top-tier place that you would want to send a quarterback. But then on the other side, you're like, well, this team won 12 games in a row, 3 years in a row, and, you know, Mike McCarthy, Super Bowl winning coach, and what has Aaron Rodgers done post Mike McCarthy? Not a whole lot, quite frankly. And so you're just like, you know, there was a lot of stability here, and there were weapons, and there was a great O-line, and there was a consistent run game. And I did this in my previous Dallas Cowboys video. When you look at all the Pro Bowlers, Dallas Cowboys have been consistently top in the NFL with you know, in Pro Bowlers and all pro players. You know, say what you will about Jerry Jones, and he's a mess, and I criticize him plenty, but like, he does get dudes there. He does. That can't be denied. And Dak Prescott has fundamentally come up incredibly short in the playoffs. Like, that's just the reality. He's had some really, really bad moments and no positive moments in the playoffs that really balance it out. You're not going to point to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game when 75-year-old Tom Brady, going through a divorce, who lost like 100 pounds and was retiring, and that team was such a mess, they had him throw the ball like 60 times. Like, that game doesn't matter. You're going to hang your hat on that game. Congrats. And then I think his other game was against a Seattle Seahawks. I mean, this was Dak's playoff win against the Seattle Seahawks. 22 for 33, 226 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 83.6 passer rating. Ezekiel Elliott rushed for 137 yards. I mean, you know, they're at home. It's like, okay. And so it's not grand enough. It's not big enough. It's not a flag that you can plant and be like, yeah, he lost a bunch of games, but like that one win, man, oh my gosh, he put the Cowboys on his back, or he just played out of his mind. And the Eagles and the Giants and the Commanders, they were missed. Not as much the Eagles, but the Eagles still had a run. I mean, like, they have Nick Foles as their quarterback, and they have Carson Wentz. They're firing their coach. They got a second-round quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Like, there was a stretch of years where it wasn't smooth. When you're changing your quarterback and you had 3 different quarterbacks, 2 different coaches, and a revolving door of coordinators. It's like, that's a messy situation. So there was plenty of opportunities for the Cowboys to pounce, clearly, and they were unable to. And there was a clip I never got the chance to make, but it was Sims and I forget who else. But they made a list of like which quarterbacks would benefit with a Super Bowl, like what would, you know, who would benefit most. And one of them was Baker Mayfield, which I think is fair. And I think another one should be, and I don't know if Dak was listed, but like I would list Dak. Because it would change everything. If Dak is able to win a Super Bowl, then he could point to, hey, I've been a great quarterback from the jump. I had the wrong coach, the wrong roster, even though that's not 100% true, and I reject that. It's still a little bit easier to point. Schottenheimer ends up being a great coach. You could be like, yeah, man, what'd you want me to do? Win with Jason Garrett? Like, come on. Or it's like, I had one weapon. Like, you would be able to, like, forget that he had a lot of teams that had a lot of Pro Bowlers and a lot of All-Pros. And you would forget that he came up pretty small in big playoff moments. That he fundamentally played poorly. Because it would be like, I played great. I won a Super Bowl. You see my performance in the NFC Championship game. Like, you would be able to emphasize that more. And he would be winning a Super Bowl with the Dallas Cowboys. Like, that would be massive. And you would just overlook all the other stuff. And you would probably start to blame more on the others, not Dak. But Dak has also made statements, because he talks about how badly he wants a ring and legacy, whatever. And it's like, but last summer, he said, it's my job to continue to push the limits of how much a quarterback gets paid. It's next man up, and it's my job. That's what he said. It's my job to make sure that these quarterbacks get paid the max amount of money that they can. And I ripped him. I was like, that is not your job. Your job is to win football games. Your job is to ultimately win playoff games and win Super Bowls. That is your job. Your job is to not make sure that the quarterbacks behind you are going to get paid. That's not at all what it is. And I remember thinking like that was an insane statement. And I love Dak in front of the mic. I think he does do great. And I think he is a leader. And I respect Dak highly in that regard. But like when he said something like that, I was like, that was not the comment to make. And he got paid. And it's like, congrats. But like, this is what I always find so funny to me. And I bring this up all the time because we just go to the same division. Go to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now you can even also just go to the Commanders. The vast majority of Cowboys fans believe that Dak Prescott is better than Jalen Hurts, is better than Jaden Daniels. Yet both those quarterbacks have gone further in the playoffs. You're not going to tell me that the Commanders had this stacked roster. There's not. Dan Quinn was a defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. Kellen Moore was the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. And you can't tell me, oh, well, the Eagles have a stacked roster. It's like, you've told me for years, outside of last year, how great this Cowboys team was. That's why they won 12 games in a row. And when I said, that's not that special, you said, oh my God, what a clown you are. And it's like, okay, so then which is it? If you've had a great team and a great roster, and your quarterback is better than these other quarterbacks, it's like, why are you not winning? And you can't say, well, Mike McCarthy. And it's like, but he was part of winning those 12 games. So they were winning in spite of him? Like, that doesn't make sense. You had Kellen Moore as your coordinator, record-setting playoffs with the Philadelphia Eagles. The roster. But you told me in the years past that the Cowboys had a better roster. The Cowboys have had great O-lines over the years, had great running games, have had great defenses. They've had all the pieces. So like that's what always continues to be messy about the conversation with the Dallas Cowboys. And when you don't win, it becomes messier because it's so much harder to try to point blame than to figure out who deserves the praise. When people want to downplay Jalen Hurts' role in winning a Super Bowl, it's a lot more clearly defined because you're like, well, he won the Super Bowl MVP, and you can point to now the defense, the offense, Saquon, whatever. Like, it's just a lot more defined. When you're losing, it's just kind of like, well, what about this and this and this and this and this and this and this, and everybody wants to point to different ways. And it's like, yeah, but like you won 12 games, in 20 whatever, and then you had a really bad playoff game, and it's like, well, it was so and so's fault, and it's like, but and it just becomes a messier conversation, honestly. And I feel as though that's where, Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys as a whole have found themselves. But even Dak's comment was kind of weird, where he was like, I just want to win a Super Bowl, even if it's for my legacy, even if it's for this or that, it's all going to take care of itself. Like, even that comment train that he kind of got on, like, didn't really land to me personally. I think Dak is upset that he sees a team like the Philadelphia Eagles going to 2 Super Bowls. I do believe that Dak believes that he's a better quarterback. He sees Jaden Daniels and the Commanders year 1 getting to an NFC championship game. He sees the Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs. He's looking around the league and being like, what's going on here? No one can pretend that Joe Burrow has had a well-run team since he's been in the NFL. No one can pretend that. None. And he's consistently had a bottom of the barrel run game, not good defenses. He's had T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Congrats. He's had some weapons. That's it. And yet he's been to AFC championship games. He's been to a Super Bowl. As much as a mess of the Dallas Cowboys have been, you're not going to tell me that the Cincinnati Bengals are better run than the Dallas Cowboys. And you're not going to tell me, oh, well, it's easier. You had to go through Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. That's not easy. Come on. I mean, they couldn't beat the Jimmy Garoppolo-led 49ers. Like, that is something. It just is. And this is what I always talk about with the Dallas Cowboys. It's like, you have to be honest about what you're seeing. When you keep telling yourself lies, you get further and further from the truth. So you can inflate, you want to downplay Dak's win against the Bucks? Yes, because they were an awful team. They were an absolute awful team. And that game was an absolute disaster. So if you want to use that to juice up his bottom line stats, so you can point to his completion percentage and his touchdowns and his passing yards in the playoffs as somehow positive, it's like, you can do that, but you're misleading yourself then. If you want to pretend like he actually played good against the Green Bay Packers because he was also able to juice up his stats after being just dominated, that's fine. It's like saying Patrick Mahomes threw a bunch of touchdowns in the Super Bowl last year. It's like, I mean, yeah, I guess technically. You're right, he did. He did. And it's like, that's not how the game unfolded. So, what does Prescott... keep using their last names. No one ever refers to Prescott as Prescott, I feel like. What does Dak have left to prove? I don't know. I think he's already proven who he is. He's a really good quarterback who at moments can play really great, but also in really important moments he can play really bad. And in the moments that really matter the most, specifically in the playoffs, he has not shown to elevate his game, that there's this other gear. He has not shown that. So if it's there, he has that left to prove. At this point, no matter what Dak does during the regular season, it really doesn't matter. I mean, you're not going to be pointing to week 7 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Did you see what Dak did? It's like, does not matter. It does not matter especially when you have other quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels going to an NFC Championship game. Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP, multiple Super Bowls. Brock Purdy, multiple NFC Championship games, Super Bowl. Like it's like that. Those other things now just he is not. I mean, we can still point to some great games, and we can point to some great games of some of these other up and coming players or players who have not had the easiest trajectory of a career, like a Tua Tagovailoa. And so if Tua puts together 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games next season, and he has some big wins against the Bills and the Chiefs, you could be like, man, Tua is actually a really good quarterback. Like, he could still prove that. You could still be like, man, if Tua didn't have the injury risk and if he could get some stability at this position and that position, it's like he's actually a lot better quarterback than people understand. Like, he still has that room for him, kind of like Baker had. Dak does not have that. He's a really good quarterback. We already know that. He's a really good quarterback. There's no more to prove in that part of the argument. It's, can you play great and step up big in the playoffs? Can you have a big moment in the playoffs where you can point to and say, that was Dak. That was Dak. And does he have that left to prove? You can only prove it if it's the reality of your story. So, I don't know. Sorry, Grover. No Prescott pyramid. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott, and his legacy? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.